Lisa, welcome to the Heroine's Journey podcast. I'm so tickled, and that's your last name,
Yes.
Tickel, to have you with us today. It's just such a pleasure. It's amazing the work that we're all trying to do with women
Mhm.
because more and more now we're disclosing what happened to us in childhood, the path of our life, which is, of course, the heroine's journey in our adult life,
Yeah.
and how we take all of that and make it into our best life. Because if you
Yeah.
got tripped up along the way, and as you and I know, like I've been tripped numerous times, and I'm guessing
Hmm.
you have too, it takes some skill and some courage and some determination to now go on with a really good life, which is basically what we all want to live.
And
So,
deserve.
welcome to the Heroine's Journey podcast. Let's chat. You and I started to get like so excited
I
in
know.
conversation because we know that we have so much to talk about. So,
Yes.
let's start by, would you tell us a little bit about what you're doing today and why you're doing it and where it came out of your history?
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on your podcast. You're right. We got so excited before the recording. It's so funny. It's like, just push the record button. Yeah. So I have a history of childhood abuse, and it was my brother, my mom, and my dad. It was all abuse except for sexual. And I've been on my healing journey since I'm 19. I just turned 62, so it's been a long, long journey. And so much of what I'm doing today came from that, in that back in the day, there wasn't the um, trauma therapy, there wasn't the
No,
podcast, the books, the not even
right,
the understanding of trauma like there is today, right? And we're
right.
still learning a lot more. And so I decided, when I got to the measure of healing that I have now, is to help other women and men. So I created a podcast that's Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. And when I started it, the idea was, what information did I need back in the day to help me on my healing journey or to help me through my healing journey? And so that mindset is how I built the podcast. So I bring on the experts and allow them to help us heal, give us tips and tools. But I also allow people to come on and have a voice, because that's one thing that us survivors have lost, was our voice, and they can share their story. In addition to
And of
that,
course, the heroine's journey is all about claiming your self-worth and your voice.
right,
Tell us, how do you define, or, I'm asking you to be a little vulnerable.
I'm okay with that.
What is abuse as a child?
So, I wish there was a defined term like that everybody would use, but everybody has their own kind of definition. And I'm not a therapist, so I don't know that much, like, I don't have the understanding quite like a therapist per se. I just know my own experience. But for me, abuse is when, you are treated in a way that hurts you, basically, because we all have
Mhm.
our own measure of, of how we handle trauma, right? So you can put two kids in the same situation and they'll come out different because they respond to stuff different. So there's so many different types of abuse. Um, but if abuse goes on, there's the one-time abuse or the one-time trauma, and then there's the complex trauma.
Mhm.
That's the one that really is the one that changes our lives. It's and when you have the complex trauma, it's the same trauma over. It's happening over and over and over again. And
And
that
I think you could describe it too as the common things that we know about now, which is narcissism and alcoholism,
Oh, sure. There's
and
the physical emotion. There's even emotional, like there's emotional neglect.
neglect.
That
Uh-huh,
leaves no scars.
uh-huh.
You can't look at someone and go, oh yeah, they were emotionally neglected, just by looking at them. But their behaviors will show that they have some unhealed trauma.
And the
This-
truth of it is that we're human with
right,
humans that grow us up, deliver us, and then grow us up. And so all of us experience some kind of malfunction, I would call it, in our
correct.
early years, because our parents were not fully formed humans that
No.
knew exactly what they were doing. Like,
And they
wouldn't
had
it
their
be
own trauma.
lovely if you came rolling down the birth canal and your mother had a guidebook for how
Right.
to.
And yes, a little book that walked her through on every step of it. See, the other complex part of this is My parents both had trauma in their life, unhealed trauma, severe
Yeah,
unhealed
mine
trauma.
too. Mine
And
too.
I'm sure that that is probably true. And
Uh-huh.
for a lot of people, and you have the generational trauma that is passed down by generation
Mhm.
as well. So we're sitting here talking about this like, oh gosh, it's just, oh, am I really going to be able to heal? Yes, you're going
Yes, because it starts, I think, with grace. Grace for yourself and grace for those people who brought you to this earth. You
right,
know,
right. And
they, I laugh and say, my mother's going to have to come back again because she did not get it all in this lifetime.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, she left, as in my view, very incomplete.
yeah. Oh yeah,
And
mine too.
and I also have a funny point of view, and that's that, people are actors in our lives, like you were watching a play on the stage, and they show up sometimes to hurt you, sometimes to guide you, sometimes to encourage you, but
Hmm.
they show up to support your soul's growth.
Right.
So for some reason, I believe I chose those parents. I hate to think that I chose pain, but in some sense, I think we do. And it's also true that it motivates you to grow beyond that and be the best person you can be in this life.
Yeah, that's one thing that perplexes me is for me, I wanted to start healing at a really young age. Like I knew there was something, I never considered myself broken, but I knew there was something inside of me that didn't feel right. Well, it was pain. It was pain,
Mhm.
right? And when I had my first moment, I call it like an aha moment where I like tasted some of the healing, that drew me to do more research, more
Mhm.
digging in. But there
Right.
are people that can't do that. But for some reason, there is a fear in them that is so deep, or they just have so many blinders on they don't see. And one of the common things I have found it true for me and many survivors, is there's a lot of times we don't even realize we were abused
Mhm.
because it was our normal. So in
Mhm.
my case, I knew my brother was abusing me. I knew that from as far back as I can remember. I didn't see my parents' abuse. I didn't see
Uh-huh.
my parents' abuse until really until I was an adult. And on my
Uh-huh.
parents' side, my dad absolutely did not protect me. Actually, he went and hid. He also, after my mom passed away when I was 16, decided he was done being a dad. You need to quit school and go get a job and take care of yourself now.
Mhm.
And then my mom, she had her own stuff, but especially when I started putting on weight from emotional eating when I was 12, she got vicious because she used liked to take the little girl and dress her up and make her look pretty. And I
Mhm.
wasn't that pretty little girl anymore, and she got vicious. So I didn't see my parents' involvement in this
Well, what my
until,
sister said wisely at one point is love is whatever you knew as a child.
right,
And
it's
I
your
think
normal.
that is the crux of the problem.
Yes,
Because if love is whatever you knew as a child, then as an adult, you go seek that same love.
correct. That's
And then
exactly
all of
what
a
I did.
sudden, the heroine finds herself in a gutter
Yep.
because she chose people who continue that pattern because that's what she knows is love. And all of a sudden, life isn't working. And
It's
so,
so
what
true.
you're talking about is really breaking that. I walked into my therapist's office and I said, could you please explain to me what love is?
Oh,
And by the way, is anger a valid emotion?
yes.
So I had these really complex questions because the culture that I grew up in, the belief structure that I grew up in,
Yeah,
they didn't support me in a healthy adult life. And that's what you
right.
and we have the same mission, which is
Yeah,
to have women have a healthy adult life, which they can enjoy joy, prosperity, freedom. But like you're saying, you have to unwind all of this, or at least understand what went on and how it's affecting you in your choices so that you
yeah,
can
yeah.
be you can miss the red flags now.
There's a statistic I was going to mention earlier. You had mentioned, um, uh, well, the statistic is, um, on average, women who are sexually abused is between the ages of 13 and 17, but they don't open their mouth and share that story for 4 decades.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
that is, and I know that to be true with all abuse. Because my
Mhm.
experience in working with women with abuse, that is so common. And about when they're about 50 years old or so is when
Mhm.
things start coming up. And that's a lot of times when they start finally getting into therapy or,
Mhm.
trying to reach out and get help. I don't want anybody to suffer for 40 years.
Right.
If
And
my podcast and
that's
my
so consistent.
workshop can help them.
That's so consistent with the heroine's journey because in the first 40 years, you're just trying to make your life look
You're in
perfect.
survival mode usually. I
You're,
was. I
yeah.
was 100% in
Security and
survival mode.
safety is what you're trying to
Right,
create. But
right.
around 50, the whole ball of wax unwinds,
Yes,
in some kind of upset. And then you start to get real. Who am I?
right.
You
Yes,
know,
I exactly.
do I
And
own my own life?
I didn't know
What's,
who I was in 2016. I was laying on my bed crying. I had no idea who I was. I wasn't a
uh,
mom anymore. I wasn't a wife. Who was I? And
yeah.
my now husband, I was dating him at the time. He's such a sweetheart. Oh, he's such a blessing. But he said, let's find out who Lisa is. So we've been on that journey, and I have discovered so much about myself that I didn't know. Even simple things that I like or things that I really don't like and I don't want to do, and it's okay. The thing that came up with me that I've described so many times is I know for me, and I've heard other people say it's true, we have a hard time finding that line in the sand because when we were kids, our boundaries were stepped over. So we didn't learn about boundaries. And so I just remember thinking, I don't know where that line in the sand is. I don't know what my normal is. Like, is it normal to do that? I don't know. And so many times my husband is my normal. And if I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm right in that or not, I'll go to him because I don't know where that line is and he'll show me where
Uh-huh.
that line is.
Yeah. Strange example, but in my first marriage, it was very strange sexually, let's just say.
Okay.
And and I remember thinking, is this normal?
Yeah.
But who did I have to ask? And
Yeah.
not my mother, it
Especially
was
something like that. Yeah.
yeah, and it was kind of before we talked openly about that. But
Hmm.
here's what happened. When we talked openly, people like me, women like me, got to get an answer to that question. And
Hmm.
talking openly about our lives and the
Yeah.
process of our lives and the steps for us to take to live joyful lives. Same thing. We have to talk about it in order to shed a light on it.
You know what's interesting? I was going to say earlier that I also have a women's childhood abuse healing workshop as well as a women's healing community. And when I did the workshop, I did it originally back in the early 2000s. And the only time we really tell any kind of story in our life is the first night. And the first night, you just tell one quick story. And there's so much fear. And remember, some of these women have never shared their story. We had one lady that was 75 years old that hadn't even told her husband her story, and they were married over 50 years. So you can imagine it's kind of scary that first person having to tell her story. Of course, I volunteer and I share mine first. But by the time as you're watching these women tell their stories and you're watching them interact with each other, there is a connection that begins that first night with those women and this safety and this, oh, you went through that too, and oh, you thought like that, and you felt like that, and you believe that
Mhm.
about yourself. All of a sudden, they're not alone in this isolated thing, having these horrible thoughts about themselves. All of a sudden, they're seeing, oh, other people think like that too, and if other people have dealt like that, and that's not normal. That's not okay.
Oh, because I felt very alone. I felt
Yes,
like
you
I said,
were.
I had a major question that I needed to ask.
Hmm.
And, you know, my mother wasn't going to answer it.
Yeah.
I went off being the hero and not the heroine. So I was in the workforce surrounded by men. Who was I going to ask there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
We
no.
have, we used to have knitting circles and crocheting circles, and in those circles we could ask those kind of questions. And
Yeah.
but we've so separated women from any kind of an activity that allows us to come. I love to play pickleball, but it's across the net.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
we do as women, like you're describing? What do we do as women where we can really collaborate and sit quietly and share as we feel
Create a
comfortable?
safe space.
Yeah.
So much of that, this might sound odd at first, but it really is beginning with a relationship with ourselves. I have found the thing that breaks my heart is how much lack of unity there is among women and how it's, of course, TV encourages us cutting each other down and being mean to each other and being jealous and
Mhm.
and in my belief for my life, jealousy has no place. And and a lot of times jealousy just comes from you not feeling secure about yourself,
Mhm.
you know? And so I really believe I'll tell you what helped me be able to connect with other women, and that was beginning to have a relationship with myself and treating myself well.
Yes.
Because I was treating other people well, but I wasn't consistent because I wasn't healthy. So I could be nice right now, but if you trigger me, you're going to
Uh,
see an ugly Lisa, right?
yeah.
And so I was all over the place. And so I had to get myself stable, which meant I had to build a relationship with myself as well as I was going along and healing. And
Mhm.
if jealousy comes up, which is extremely rarely with me, I don't look at them. I look at me. I'm like, wait,
Mhm.
what's going on here? Wait, why do I feel jealous?
Uh-huh.
It's not anything they're doing. It's 100% right here.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Nobody can make me feel jealous,
No,
right?
but you mentioned earlier when we started to chat and then we were like, oh no, we should be. You mentioned, and I have this difficulty, and let's explore this a little bit.
Okay.
There is a child in me that screams. And then
Yes.
there's a teenager in me that is also not fully formed. And then there's this adult that I present to the outside world that can be an adult and can make
Hmm.
plans and have rational progress. But sometimes right in the middle of that, that child in me starts
Kicks up.
screaming so loudly that it overrides this adult and her ability to
Oh
negotiate
yeah.
and carry on. And I would say that so much of the work that I've done, and I heard this in you too, I've done so much work with that child to
Hmm.
calm that child inside of me because the heroine's journey is about claiming your self-worth and your voice by starting with your self-worth. But when that child is screaming in you, you have to address that child in some fashion or, you know,
Yeah.
he
She's gonna
derails
scream.
you.
She's gonna scream. She's gonna have a tantrum. She's gonna keep
Mhm.
going until she's heard.
That's right.
She just wants to be heard. And so, yeah, I have done the
And
inner work
loved.
and loved. And yes, and I was telling you before we started, this is me at about probably 4 or so. And
Mm,
that's as far back as I can remember my abuse is when it started then.
uh-huh,
Excuse me. And I have done work with little Lisa. I've done work with teenage Lisa. Little Lisa and I are good. Teenage Lisa and I are still working on it. But
uh-huh,
she would kick and scream. And actually, I'll tell you the story of how her and I reconnected, I guess is the best way to put it. I was doing EMDR. It's an acronym. I forget what the full name is, but it is a modality used to help with the childhood abuse healing. And one of the things I you do is you'll go back into a memory and you do kind of relive it, but it's a very safe setting. Anyway, one of the things is I was supposed to tell as a little girl, I was supposed to tell my mom how I felt in this moment. And I immediately said, "Oh no, 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 no. I will get hurt.
mm,
I'll get hurt." And
yeah,
so my therapist said, "Why don't you come along, Lisa? Why don't you come alongside her?" And so I did, and I cannot tell you what that did. All of a sudden, little Lisa felt completely safe, and she could say exactly what she needed to say. And that was the beginning of me working with her. And I just remember in my mind's eye when I came up alongside her and her looking up at me with, like tears, and then just looking at mom and
mhm,
saying to mom what she wanted to say back then that she couldn't. Now she was
yeah.
respectful, but still. And
You
so,
have to go through though therapy and years of therapy to heal because you
no,
have to dig into all
no,
this. I
no.
mean, there are women listening to us talk about this saying, how do I do this? Is this a long journey or is this something that, I can actually start to do myself?
So you can actually start to do it yourself. And here's the thing, and this might sound discouraging, but let me explain. We're on our healing journey until we take our last breath. But what I will say is when you dig in and you start doing the work, it gets easier to do the work. It doesn't mean the work is easy, but it gets easier to do the work. And
Uh,
no, you don't need to do the deep, heavy stuff all the time. And honestly, today, I still do deep work, but it's real quick. It doesn't take because I know what to look for, and if I have my mind open, I know how to work with it,
So
and I have a therapist.
let's explain that a little bit.
So,
Because, for instance, in me, when I hear that child scream, I actually sit down, take some breaths,
yes.
and talk to that child.
Yes. Yeah.
And I talk to that child saying, I know it's difficult. I know you don't know how to solve the problem. I know that you just want to be safe and secure. And I just want to let you know that the adult is showing up here. I'm here. I'm
You're
the adult.
safe. You're safe.
You're safe, and I'm going to make a plan for us. And
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah,
what
I
you're talking
gotcha.
about coming alongside. I come alongside that inner, I'm getting goosebumps when I say
Yeah.
this. I come along that inner child in me and I reassure her because if I ignore her, if I tell her she's wrong, if I
Yeah.
don't acknowledge and love her, then she's going to interrupt me. And I sit there for maybe 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes. I
Yeah.
sometimes meditate in that space as well.
Hmm.
But I use that, I take a purposeful time out
Yes.
to calm me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that's what you and I are talking about. While it's, it's useful to have help and other people guide you. I think also, like you're saying, it's all here. So we have to do it.
One thing I did with teenage Lisa that I'm still working on, and this is really profound. Part of what little Lisa or teenage Lisa is they're just looking for recognition. They just want to be heard. They want to be validated, right? And so what I did with teenage Lisa is I sat down and wrote her a letter. And
Yeah.
the way that I wrote the letter was validating her. So I would say, for instance, yeah, I remember when mom, you know, couldn't find the scissors and came to the your bedroom door and knocked on your door and opened the door, asked you where the scissors were. You said you didn't know. She called you a bitch, slammed the door shut, and walked away. Like,
Scissors were a big deal in my house
I
too.
know that
What
I
is that?
believe me,
Every time the scissors were missing, it was my fault.
I made sure I always put those scissors back.
Me too.
Always. So I know I didn't do it. So anyway, so acknowledging that and saying that wasn't fair, that wasn't right. She should not have called you a bitch. I'm sorry you went through it. So just acknowledging what she went through because nobody else did it. And
Right.
so just acknowledge, just saying that it sounds like it wouldn't make sense, but there's something about writing.
Uh-huh.
And you can type it. It's better if you can write it. Um, because it slows down because I can type faster than my brain, so that's not always good. So it's better to kind
That
of
that was
slow
my
it down.
post on that was my post on Facebook today. Is me, I write 3 pages every morning.
Oh,
And what I
good.
said in that is that it does several things. One, I start with gratitude.
Yeah.
Two, I get rid of some stuff that's in my brain
Right.
that I
Yeah, banging
that
around in your
I'm
brain.
carrying around that is
Yeah.
just becoming. And three, I put pieces together that I wouldn't
Yes.
have put together if I just let them noodle in the back of my brain.
That is
So
so true.
I
And
totally am on for
writing.
journal writing every day.
And the other thing that it can do is sometimes shame bounces around in our head. And when we tell that story out loud, all of a sudden it doesn't have the power anymore.
Uh-huh,
There's something about when you get it out of your brain, whether you say it or write it, there's something to that. And I know scientifically there is proof to that as well. But
uh-huh.
just sit down and write a letter to your little self, whether it's your little girl or the teenage girl, and just you don't even have to think about it. You can just start writing. Just do what I call a brain dump. Just start writing what comes up. If it doesn't make sense, don't worry about punctuation. Just start writing, and you'd be surprised. And you're right, it is so profound. Another time that I wrote was I was going through some hard times, and I don't visit my parents at their graves. I'm just not that person, but I felt led to go there. And I hadn't been there since my dad had passed, and I felt led to take a pad of paper and a pen. And I sat down at their gravesite, and I don't know how many pages I wrote. But like I
Mhm.
updated my mom on everything that's happened since she died when I was 16. My dad died in 2001, so I'm updating him on all this stuff. But then what came to me is that was the beginning of me realizing they went through their own stuff.
They did.
My
Yeah.
dad became a single father when my mom died when I was 16. Like I
Right.
and I didn't expect myself to know that at 16, right? I was 16 and suffering with my own stuff, but the adult Lisa was able to look back and go, "Wow, dad,
Yeah.
you lost her and you had a daughter that you had to raise."
Because the thing of it is on the heroine's journey, it's all about creating perspective,
Right.
you know, so that you can live freely. And that's
Right.
perspective on what happened in the past, not so that you're a victim any longer, but so that you can actually transform that, you know,
Exactly.
transform it into something that's make lemonade out of lemons. And
Beauty from
I
ashes.
I know that sounds difficult when you're in the middle of it. And at the same time, that is the growth that you're called to.
Right.
You're called to not being in the middle of it any longer and saying, oh my God, I was victimized, blah, blah, blah. But actually being able to look at it almost like you're looking at a movie on a screen where
Yeah, yeah.
emotion is no longer ruling you,
Right.
but you can tell the story. And like they always say, don't teach while you're still bleeding.
Right. Right.
I
It's
mean,
true.
getting to the point in your stories that they become meaningful. I only tell a story from my own life if it's a teaching point.
Correct. Me too.
But a story, having those stories become meaningful so that you can help other people
Mhm.
and that they're not roadblocks in your journey.
Exactly, or triggers anymore because I can tell this, the stories from my childhood. And it's almost like I'm telling someone else's story because it doesn't have that emotional
Exactly.
effect on me anymore. There's
Exactly.
still some stories
Yeah.
that'll come up that will hit
Yeah.
me sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me. I know that's part of the healing journey is that,
And when they do, you have to say to yourself, okay, what don't I fully understand about
right,
this?
why is this
What lesson is in this for me that I haven't fully gotten?
right? Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, it really is a journey until you take your last breath. But as you work on your journey, it does get easier. And this stuff doesn't have this heaviness on you anymore.
Right.
What it does is when you decide to begin your healing journey and look, it's going to be like this.
Up and down.
You're going to get empowered. You're going to get stronger. It's worth it. It's just worth it. And there
Let me
there are
ask you this question. Was there a significant moment when you decided something happened and you decided that you were going to turn your life around and because that point for the heroine's journey is you decide to own your own life.
mm-hmm,
Before that, you're busy blaming other people and feeling you were
mm-hmm.
a victim and all. But there's this moment where you say, it's mine. It was there that, can you describe that moment for you?
It was long into my healing journey, to be honest with you, because again, remember, I didn't have the trauma therapy and stuff. I did a lot of healing in my adult life before I started therapy. And so there was a measure of healing, but really part of the defining moment was when I went through my divorce, jumped right back into another relationship that ended up being full on narcissistic.
Ditto, ditto.
Full on. And it's because I had the belief system that nobody loved me. So I had to prove that wrong by finding somebody that would love me, no matter who it was. Right. And
Ditto.
and a year and a half after we were married, he passed. What I recognized is I saw the pattern. I saw what I was doing. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing this anymore.
Mhm.
And that's when I got into the trauma therapy. And that's when I started digging deep, is because
Mhm.
I decided if I get married again, it's going to be the last one and it's going to be amazing. And that's exactly what I did. But let me say this to the listeners, I'm nobody special. It's not like I deserve this. We all deserve this. I worked for it. And you can work for it and you absolutely can have it too. Because again, I'm nobody special who's got special treatment. Believe me, I've worked really hard to get where I'm at, and I'm still working hard, but that's for everybody.
Mhm. Yes, I want to ditto that. All of us get to that moment where we're like, this is too much for me. I
Right.
can't do this. For me, I got down on my knees and said, God, you got to help me here.
Yeah.
Like I'm, I think I'm smart, I'm well educated. I worked on Wall Street, blah, 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 but it's not enough right now.
Hmm.
I need more help than what I've got.
Yeah.
with me. And
Yeah.
I would say that that was so significant because I stopped trying to source it off from me and what I
Right.
was creating, and I was looking to co-create. And I was
Exactly.
looking for divine help. I was looking for people. I
Mm-hmm.
was looking for other things
Mm-hmm.
that could give me perspective that I finally admitted I was
Mm-hmm.
lacking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 It is a lonely journey, but it doesn't have to be. And that's what's so great now is there are so many modalities, there are support systems. When I've like I said earlier, I've got the workshop for helping women heal. It's a 6-week workshop, but what's really cool is I've got a women's healing community. So you can just jump right on over into that healing community because we need each other. We
Hmm.
need each other for support, for encouragement, for accountability.
Hmm.
We need each other for that. And I have found that accelerated my healing when I was spending time in therapy and with other women as opposed to trying to do it all by myself, me and God. Now, me and God had a great thing going, but it's not him, it's me. So I slowed things down, right? So, but when you're in a group, when you're in with other women who understand you, because I'll tell you, you know this, and a lot of the listeners know this, but some of the people who've never dealt with the childhood abuse, it's crazy what it does to you. It does the craziest stuff to you, makes you do crazy stuff. And you're sitting there going, why the hell am I doing this? We can't help it until we get help. And then it flips. And then we manage our lives instead of our abuse managing our lives.
Exactly. Say that again.
So it gets to the point where we are able to manage our abuse rather than the abuse managing us or the effects of the abuse.
Because I would say too that for so long, it was like the elephant under the rug.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, don't want to deal with that, don't want to know about that. I'm just going to be superstar Joan, I'm going to look good on the outside. I'm going to do all the things that, have the world fall in love with me. And then call it some major event for how many women are like you and I? I've been married twice.
Yeah.
Both of them, quite frankly, were disasters.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that upset that at the time, I wanted to call it a huge disaster, but it was actually a gift because it
Mm-hmm.
sat me right back down on my butt. And
Yep.
I had to think, Joan, what's going on here?
Yep. Why
And
am I doing this?
that's when I had to start to look at owning my own life. And
Correct.
that meant that elephant under the rug.
Right. Because that stuff that happened to us when we were little we had no control over it, no say over it.
Mhm.
The thing is, as an adult, we do. We just
Yes,
still sometimes have that mindset as a child, like I'm still a victim, I'm still helpless. No, 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 no. You're an adult
you're an
and you
adult.
actually have agency. Like you have
Uh-huh.
say over your life and what you do and what others do to you as well.
Right. That's right. And that screaming child can't override that adult because the
Mm-mm.
adult needs to step forward. And
Right, right.
to me, that was the path of the heroine's journey because I got the crisis. I went through that gut-wrenching, horrible, that whole divorce thing. But look how
Yeah.
many of us go through that
Yeah.
now. I mean,
It's
in
so
in
rare that I run into someone who hasn't had childhood abuse or trauma. Seriously. And that
exactly.
hasn't made those mistakes of being married or being in numerous relationships.
Yeah, and I think what that tells you is that when you get that upset midlife, it's because something was going on in your thinking that was a result of that early part. I, like I had a narcissistic father. I chose a narcissistic man.
Yeah, of
You know,
course you did. That's your
well,
normal.
that's a prescription for, upset because I didn't understand what a good man looked like.
Right.
I didn't understand, I felt like for a lot of my life, I just got thrown from gutter to gutter. You would
Mm-hmm.
never know that or think that about me if you just knew me as a human being today,
Right.
because I look all shiny and put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can put
But
on a good mask too if we need to.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I was good at
But
that.
what I came to the conclusion is I don't want to just look good on the outside, which is what all of culture tells us. And all of culture tries to diminish our self-worth. So as women, we are against a fight anyway. You're
Yeah.
not skinny
Yeah.
if you need makeup to look good. You should have a
Right.
credit card with a lot of debt on it. So the messages are all about diminishing our self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
And at that midpoint, you take ownership and you say, oh, no, 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 no. I need my self-worth is my most treasured asset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Most treasured. I protect it like fiercely now
Mm-hmm.
because I understand that part of it.
Yeah, the only time
Because,
used to protect myself is when I would get triggered.
yeah, yeah. But it now we realize it's an everyday thing.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, to have the life that we have, we do have to work on it every day.
Mhm,
And it doesn't mean that you're working all day hard, right? Some days you
mhm,
are, some days it's a little easier, but every day I am looking at ways to make myself healthier. I don't want to say better. I don't like that word because that means that I wasn't good and now I'm getting better, but just getting healthier, just getting healthier. And it's just like, for instance, having a new relationship with food,
uh-huh,
right? Because as a young child, I started eating, emotionally eating, and I put weight on, and I struggled all my life with weight. And then I also struggled all my life with food. Food was bad, food was good. I was all over the place. And what I've had to do over the last several years, it's only been the last several years, where I'm getting a new relationship with food.
mhm.
It doesn't have the whole, like, I don't have to eat, nasty broccoli all the time,
Right.
I can eat real healthy, flavorful food. And I don't have to eat this much. I just eat this much and I'm satisfied. But it took a
Mhm.
while for me to get there. It was stages. It was those little steps that I would take throughout the years and the little changes that I made that got me here today. I didn't wake up one morning and decide, okay, I'm just going to have my act together now. It's been
No.
baby steps along the way.
And that's the whole point of it. That's why I wrote the book, The Heroine's Journey, because in 4 areas, you have to determine what are your best strategies. One of
Right.
them is financial.
Mm-hmm.
Another is physical, which is life force energy, which is what you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
Another of them is beliefs, what you're saying to yourself about yourself.
Oh yeah.
And the fourth one that tripped me up the most, it's what caused my upset in the heroine's journey was relationship. Because I grew up thinking, oh, let everybody in
Yes. Trust everyone.
and just let, you should shift shape. I love that word, shift shape,
Yeah.
so that they like you.
Yeah. Oh, I was a chameleon. I was a chameleon. I would, Joan, okay, I'd assess you and I'd figure out, okay, this is how you want me to be. So let me adjust myself so that
Uh-huh.
you like me. I was proud of the fact that I was a chameleon.
Yes. And now we can label that that's not authentic.
Oh
I want
no.
Lisa know the real you. I want to connect heart to heart with who you really are, what your
Mm-hmm.
point of view is, what your struggles are. This is the humanness and the part that I so think our society and women, as we were saying earlier, because we
Mm-hmm.
don't sit in knitting circles any longer, it's what we're missing.
Yeah, we need the connection. We were created to be connected to each other, and especially, and women need to connect with women, and men need to connect with men. And that has been broken down in our society. That's not acceptable. On the women's side, it's like be vicious to each other, be mean to each other, cut each other down, be passive aggressive, and in men, they've got their own issues. And that's not how we're supposed to be. We're supposed to connect. There's nothing more beautiful than when we connect. I mean, one of my favorite things to see is a group of men praying together.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that will put me in tears. There's just something so vulnerable and sweet about that.
Uh-huh.
Imagine what that does to God's heart, right?
Uh-huh.
But we're meant to connect. We're not meant to be alone. And that's what happens when we get abused is I know for me, I would pull back and be alone. But I would be lonely.
Because I labeled myself not good.
Right.
And a terrible story, but I'll tell it, is that one time I said to my father, could you say something kind about me? Could you say something good about me? And he said to me, that's not my job. My job is to point out what you're not doing well, good. As a child, I
Oh
just
my
went
God.
away because that made me forever feel like, the babies come roaring down the birth canal. There's not someone at the end stamping approved or disapproved.
Right.
But I stamped disapproved on my
Yep.
own forehead because of that. Because what he was telling me is I could never do it right. And, as a child, that made me feel really unloved.
Hmm.
And at the same time, you know, it it was terrible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's those statements that are said to us that change the course of our life.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, and when I asked you is, what was the transition? What was your healing moment? And for me, it was getting down on my knees and saying, I can't do this. And the answer I got back was, you're perfect as you are.
Oh,
And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, that's good
yeah.
enough. My life isn't where I want it to be. I'm not seeing on the outside what I want to see, but let's start with me. If
Hmm.
I'm perfect as I am, that means I came here with gifts, skills, tools, and talents. That means I can put two and two together and get four. That means that I can recreate and rearrange and redo. And that was just such a healing point for me
Hmm.
to realize that, I'm complete.
Hmm. Hmm.
And let's
Yes.
start there.
Let's just start there. Right. Right. And it's so freeing, because that perfectionism and people pleasing and all that gets pushed aside.
Yes, exactly.
And you just get to be the raw you and it's
Mhm.
acceptable. And
Mhm.
it's like, and I don't know at what point I kind of broke the perfectionism thing because it was pretty prevalent in my life, which is common. But if I would have continued with that perfectionism, I would have never done my workshop. I would have never done the podcast. I
Right.
would have never done. And now I goof up and I just laugh at myself. I used to
Uh-huh.
berate myself, and
Yeah.
now I laugh at myself and have a good
Uh-huh.
time with it. And it's not perfect, and I goof up and I say sometimes stupid things or,
Uh-huh.
whatever. I don't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I just need to be me. I spent a lot of years not being me.
Yeah. And the other thing I heard you say too is that I spent a lot of years not living from my own gifts.
Oh no.
And
No.
what I learned in the heroine's journey was that I needed to be aware of what gifts that I came to this planet with and what I'm
Correct.
supposed to do in terms of service with those
Mm-hmm.
gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally believe that's where happiness lies. It's
Mm-hmm.
not in deciding that you're going to go, take a job someplace else just to earn money. Oh, no, no. It's really assessing your own gifts and then
Yeah.
saying, how
Yeah.
can I work from there?
Exactly. I know because I love what I do. It's hard. It's difficult. Trauma is
Mhm.
not a fun subject to get into doing
No,
the
it's not.
research, but I absolutely
Mhm.
love what I
Yeah.
do. It's absolutely my passion, and I'm making a difference. And I'm making beauty from ashes.
Yes. So tell us, where can our listeners find you?
Okay, so there's several places. So my podcast is on YouTube. It's Healing and Growing Hand in Hand Podcast. I also have a website with the same name. You can find me on Spotify. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I also have a women's childhood abuse healing workshop, and there's a website that is named that. And on there, you can also connect with my women's healing community. And then I also have one more thing: Experts Explain Trauma YouTube series on my YouTube channel where I bring in experts. I ask them one question about a topic and they answer it. It's been a great success. I've learned a lot. I tell you, I get a lot of free therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how
Exactly.
you
Well,
can
I'm
find
so
me.
delighted to have had our conversation today. I'd just
Me
like to
too.
say to our listeners, please go to heroinesbook.com and get my book, The Heroine's Journey, because it will have so many changes in the way you're thinking about things, comfort that you're not alone on this journey,
Yeah.
and plans to go forward so that you create the hope and the life that you want to have. So go to heroinesbook.com. Again, Lisa, thanks so much for being with us. And I look forward to more that we do together.
Oh, thank you so much.